Slow Medicine Radio. Our host is integrative medicine Dr. Michael Finkelstein. Michael offers medical advice from a holistic paradigm, including both medical and metaphysical philosophies from the full spectrum of human experience. Slow Medicine Radio offers fresh ideas on how to attain a state of wellness that seems distant given the limitations of today's medical paradigm. It introduces you to thought leaders who connect the dots between theory and practice, examining health from a broad perspective with regards to medical diagnoses, conventional and alternative therapies, healthcare policy, and related topics that warrant further thought and discussion. Slow Medicine Radio does not prescribe to take this or do that. Instead, it offers an open-minded, intelligent, and practical approach to living, resulting in greater health individually and collectively. Here is Dr. Michael Finkelstein, the founder of Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York.
Well, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein, and we're here every Monday now from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. on WVOX 1460 on your AM dial and WVOX.com. And the mission of this program is to help you improve the quality of your health on all levels, not only the physical elements that make up your health, but the relationships that your life takes on your journey throughout. And this week in particular, as we prepare for the first major holiday of the season, Thanksgiving, what comes to my mind is, what goes on around that table on Thursdays in so many households. And what I hear from people around me, not only my patients and clients, but friends, family, is a certain amount of anxiety associated with the holidays. Not just for those who are the hosts and hostesses, but going to tight quarters with people you don't always see who have history and stories. And the meal, as wonderful as it is, clearly the need to express gratitude for each other and for what we have in this world, all things considered, as vital as that is, it's still complicated. So to join me today in this conversation is somebody that I think, at least in my life, is the most prepared person on that subject, and that's my wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, who you may also know as the slow medicine therapist. And Robin's background is psychospiritual counseling, which goes to say that, it's not just the psyche and psychology, psychiatry, but it's the working relationship of our mind and our emotional state with our relationships, in particular, starting with our relationship to ourselves and how that reflects in our relationships with others. And Robin and I have been working together, actually way beyond our personal relationship, for more than 10 years. And, I got to learn of Robin's work through some of the things that she does, which is really to help people feel completely secure in an environment so that they could feel well enough to really get into and see for themselves what's going on in their inner world and share that, express that, and learn to heal that. So when it comes to this week and the beginning of this holiday season, I'd like to share with you a conversation that I'm going to have right now with Robin to help us understand what would make for a high-quality experience later this week and for our lives going forward. So, Robin, welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
Wonderful to be here with you.
So the first question I have for you is, what does a healthy family look like? Before we talk about what it doesn't look like, in general, if you were to contemplate where we're actually heading, what you're trying to achieve when you see people one-on-one or in family groups, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What are you trying to assemble? What's the vision?
Well, the vision is to help people understand the most important skill, and that is to be loving and love themselves.
Mm-hmm. So if around the table everyone is loving and loves themselves, it would go pretty well, I would say.
Absolutely.
So, and let's say, families are composed of a lot of different relationships. So there's, the intimate relationship in couples. There's their relationship often with children, if they have them, with their parents, with siblings, and extended family. So, but we know that ideal might work here and there, but often when you look at the collective, when you bring 10 people into a room, all of whom have had some history with each other, while that is a great theme, love and loving yourself, it breaks down.
Right.
So what describe not just what happens, because I think most people are familiar with what happens, but what do you try to help people with when they come to you and they say, gee, I'm really a little anxious about what's going to happen later in the week? Right. How do you start to talk to them?
Right. Well, you said an important word early on as well, is many people suffer with anxiety, which is the opposite of faith and love. It is an energy of fear. Afraid of the unknown, afraid of being judged. So what I do with my clients, first of all, is just to be present with them and really, really listen and be a really good mirror for them.
So often I think, I know this from your work, when people feel heard, they feel much more relaxed to begin with. A lot of people are used to people stepping on them in one way or another, right, not caring what they say. And over time, if that's been your pattern in life, then you may wind up assuming somehow you're not worthy of anyone listening to you. And even though that may be an unconscious thing, people
right,
are usually not telling themselves, yeah, I'm not worthy. But their behavior reflects a sense that maybe they don't, have as much to say, or what they're saying isn't as valuable. And that can be a reflection of how they've been treated in the past, but it also can generate the dynamics in a family where some people get aggressive when somebody is not standing up for themselves.
That's right. So love will bypass any negativity. It only takes one person to be loving, and that energy will trickle out and can affect a whole room.
Yeah, so I know we have talked about that before in preparation for our gatherings at Sunraven. And I think on air, maybe when we've done a show like this in the past, we've talked about how if there's one person like you now who are listening, let's say you go into your Thanksgiving meal with the intention, as Robin is going to share with you now, like you're going to be the loving light. You know that these things are happening, they're all set up, they've happened in the past, but this year you're going to bring so much love in your heart for yourself, that's where you start, but also compassion for other people and empathy. And you're going to come there and you're going to try to share that, spread that over so much that there's no room for the fear and the anxiety, as you just said, Robin.
Absolutely.
So that's a great plan, as I see it. How can you help a person like that who really says, this is the year I want this to be different. I really want to elevate this.
Right. Well, the first thing is to consider loving yourself, and self-care is essential. Planning before you are engaged with a large group or family members that you haven't seen is to make sure that all your needs are considered first, so you don't go in hungry, tired, and lonely. So around the holidays, what ends up happening is a lot of people are overdoing it. So taking a pause would be taking some time for yourself and your own personal needs.
So we've talked about when you say taking care of yourself, they may sort of translate that, use the word feeding yourself. And of course there's food. People feed themselves food. So maybe don't go into that day, even though you're going to probably overeat. Don't go into the day particularly hungry, and then wind up having a harder time with the food. But there's different types of hunger. There's the emotional hunger and the spiritual hunger. That's really what I want to focus on in this particular question. The idea is if you can take care of yourself that way, if you can pat yourself on the back, if you can take a break to breathe, if you can be as well rested as you can be, if you could clear your head, if you could say your own prayer, if you could connect to, let's say, another family member who gets you and who really appreciates this, join hands, build up a certain strength and harmony before you enter a room where there's a little bit more conflict, potentially. That's what you're saying.
Yes, move into the environment from a full place, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. So you have mentioned, too, the concept of triangulation. I want to shift to the idea about communicating. So you walk into the room, and now you're seeing people, in one place, maybe only gather that one time of the year, or maybe one or two other times of the year, and there's some old histories and communication. One of the things that I notice is, people are already talking to, let's say, their best family friend about another who's going to show up. I want to, I'm a little upset with my mother, so I'm going to talk to my sister and just share with my sister that I'm a little upset with my mother. That type of thing. That's triangulation.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how that doesn't work.
That doesn't work because a triangle, there's always one man out. And it creates separation. The intent is really from anxiety and needing to process with someone else. Perhaps maybe it's their feelings. Unless you have skills and you can speak in a loving way about perhaps maybe some feelings that might be coming up, we tend to often, people will criticize or judge. So we want to really be mindful how not to incorporate negativity about other people. If we need to talk about our emotions that might be coming up, you may want to speak to a friend before you go to a family gathering or a counselor, or just maybe sit in some meditation just to have the mindfulness and the awareness of what is present for you, so you can move into it from a place of love and gratitude and appreciation for people.
Right. So when you get to the triangle, so let's say you do have feelings about your mother. Mm-hmm. So what you're suggesting is, well, share them either directly with your mother at a time when it can be constructive, right, or be careful with who else you might speak to. Because, what I'm hearing when you talk is, I'm just imagining to myself, because, I have to admit, I've been guilty of this at times myself. But the idea is, let's say I talk to my sister. My sister also has some feelings about my mother. So now my feelings plus her feelings get magnified. Right. Sometimes my sister's not in the ideal place, and so she's going to want to dig my mother a little bit anyway on her own. Now she's got my fuel to add to that, and it gets expressed in a way that's not as clear, certainly not direct, and therefore has a lot more potential for damage and escalation. And so right, in holiday gatherings, it's a particularly good time to avoid those triangulating discussions, certainly ahead of time, and even at the table. And it's a good idea, I think, to have somewhat of a rule, maybe a family rule, is let's stay in the positive. Let's just stay talking about each other in gratitude.
Right.
We live in a country now where people are talking about the fractionation in the country, like two parts of us have been separated into these factions. And that people are talking about the country as a family in need of healing. And what part of the healing message is, look, we have so much in common. Yes, there may be differences, important differences. But because we have so much in common, if we could look at the common, if we could enjoy the common history, what we've overcome, the good times that we've shared, that as a prevalent theme might help deal with, okay, occasionally we can also look at differences, but let's start from a place where we remind ourselves of the benefit of our association. Right. And in the case of a family, most families have a lot of good times that they can remember. Even if they're, broken apart by years and space, there are a lot of things that siblings can remember that they were able to do at one point.
One of the most important things that we can do is to really listen to each other without our opinions placed on or in the conversation. So even if someone is complaining or struggling, the idea is you don't need to agree or disagree. You can actually just have empathy and validate the person.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Goes a long way.
I think many people, when they hear something, especially if it's identification of a problem, a challenge, or even a point of view, is I must respond to that in some way by offering my opinion, right, by offering my help. And even though sometimes help is welcome, often that gets us into trouble. Some people are not talking to ask for help. They may just want to be heard. They want to just share parts of themselves. Right. And so maybe one of the things that we could remember this week is to go in there without trying to do anything other than what you just said, is mirror what somebody said. I heard you say, you think we might consider eating less animal products next year, as opposed to going into some whole debate as far as, whatever point of view you might have on that subject.
Right. That mirror really works well. So if I hear you correctly, you said maybe next year we might want to consider eating less animal products. Did I get you?
Right. So,
and is there more about that?
Right. So the curiosity, at least to a completely different tenor in the conversation.
Right.
And, then at another time you can say, let's discuss this. Let's actually decide. Let's do this together. Let's take vote.
Right.
But it doesn't need to be at the table where one person is exerting their will or influence on the other, and where particular siblings or in-laws, try to establish their power, their platforms and their basis for being there. Keep in mind, this holiday in particular is one where gratitude is the main theme.
That's right.
And it's a great beginning of a holiday season where we can say, okay, even though there still remains challenges, there still are problems, we're here, we have this opportunity, and we could set the intention that this year ahead will be filled with a lot more love, and that love will be creative, and whatever problems we have will be helped along with that love.
That's right. Listening, the art of listening, and we use it in our slow medicine communication. The principles are extremely powerful when I work with couples. Another thing is that happy couple that's clear and communicates well, and it starts from the top. It really, really does trickle down right into family members, whoever might be hosting, and to remember the art of listening is so powerful. We don't need a solution at the end of the conversation. It's remarkable how people really just want to feel heard, and that creates connection.
Right. The art of listening. Just think about going to a concert.
Right.
You're listening to an orchestra or your favorite band. You don't go there making a suggestion, blurting it out. Hey, I think you need to turn up the bass a little bit.
Right.
You sit there and you listen and you spend 2 hours, and in general you leave feeling like that was a good experience. You appreciated what those musicians were trying to do.
Right.
If you can go into Thanksgiving with, let me just observe this whole day. Let me consider not just even all those people who are around set the table and prepare the food, but even the farmers that produce the food. The sunlight energy that trickles down onto the farm, and you just think of the vast connections that led to that meal. One could really see this as an art form.
Absolutely.
And then the listening or the observation of it really becomes your main goal for the day.
Right.
And then just like a concert goer, you can be, leave with a feeling of fullness because you did achieve that. That's what you received. Anyway, I think we'll take a break right now, but I want you to write down this number because I want you to call, maybe ask some of your questions. I want to hear from you. What do you anticipate this week, Thursday? What kind of questions might you have for Robin as far as an approach to families, approach to individuals, approach to taking care of yourself, any of the things that have come up in this conversation? The number is 914-636-0110. Again, it's 914-636-0110. You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio, and we'll be back in a minute.
You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. You can find out more about the show and the work of Dr. Michael Finkelstein by visiting his website, slowmedicinedoctor.com. Slow Medicine Radio is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, dedicated to providing community-centered, experiential, and reflective learning for individuals, families, and groups, offering educational programs, events, and resources, as well as insightful health evaluations with customized medical guidance. Dr. Finkelstein works with his wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, at their farm, Sunraven, in Bedford, New York. And they invite you to visit and take advantage of this unique resource, including men's and women's groups and couples programs. If you think about it, much of what we experience when we don't feel well is a result of the fast world and how it affects us. Therefore, if fast is the disease, then slow is the medicine. Visit Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York. Go to slowmedicinedoctor.com or call 914-218-3113. And thank you for tuning in Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein. And I want to say that this show is sponsored by the Mayer Foundation. Generous contribution has made this show possible. And so I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful for all of you who are listening. In fact, we'd love to hear from you, 914-636-0110. And Robin, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about appreciation. This concept of, gratitude, appreciation. Tell us a little bit about when you hear that word or think about that concept, what comes to mind and how does that apply here to this conversation?
I think it's one of the most beautiful gifts you can give to yourself and to someone else is to acknowledge something specific about a quality that you have or that somebody else has and share that. I think it first starts with yourself, that you have a good positive energy within yourself, and then one can remember in your day goes a long way to just compliment someone. And so being it's the holidays, I think it could really be a great tool to just compliment, notice someone, and really share it creates intimacy.
I know I've watched you initiate that in our own home, which is asking people to go around the table and not just say what they're grateful for, but to specifically talk about gratitude in another person. You've done that at birthdays. Right. So when we've had a birthday and somebody's about to blow out the candles and you say, okay, so here's the gift you can give to Michael. Tell him what you appreciate about him. It's interesting. Some people do that really easily. They enjoy that. Something's right on the tip of the tongue and they could say it. Other people have to think about it. Some people, of course, when put on the spot like that, a little hesitant. They don't always feel good about what they're coming up with, or maybe they don't have good things to say or think. But on the other hand, I think it is a great practice, and it cultivates, in addition to what the words are that come out of somebody's mouth, that it is, I'll call content, but there's this energy, just just shifting from your head to your heart is really good, is a feature of that, which I think is practical here, which is, instead of anticipating so much, is that you just reflect, make a point of reflecting periodically, and this is true in life, not just on Thanksgiving, but what am I feeling right now? What am I, and the fact that you can feel, even if the feeling is a little bit uncomfortable, the fact that you are alive to feel is cause for gratitude.
That's right. Feeling appreciative of yourself is really essential to being a loving person, and we cannot love and give to others unless we embody that within ourselves. So I love what you said about a daily practice to look in the mirror and be able to reflect the positive qualities that you have and what you're feeling. Really, it creates intimacy.
Sometimes, when I see people, myself, and they talk about how they're not feeling well, and part of that, it comes up even in the conversations I have where we may start about the physical body, and my work and your work are sort of dovetail. They cross in the mental, emotional space often, where people will, come to me first and they'll say, well, my back's been bothering me. Eventually they'll get to, well, this has been a stressful week or month or year, and I'll ask about that a little bit. And then people are hard on themselves. I notice that people are hard on themselves. They don't work hard enough is one of the things that they say paradoxically, or they feel like they should be doing more. That's how it usually comes out. I should do this, I should do that, I should do that. But then, I try to help them come to an awareness that, their sensitivity, that, the fact that they're struggling with that a little bit. I'm not judging it. I just want to listen. This is how you feel. And I want to point out that there's something about you that I'm admiring qualitatively, because you're sensitive. You care about this.
Right.
This is coming across your radar screen. Now, maybe you didn't work it out thoroughly yet, but I like that feature of sensitivity. And most people who struggle, we can talk about this, and I want to talk about addiction with you at some point, but a lot of people who struggle, often are highly sensitive people, and that's a beautiful quality. Difficult sometimes to be that person, but a beautiful, beautiful quality, a quality where one can actually be grateful.
That's right. You said a word, should, and how people place expectations on themselves and very much come from the mind of the shoulds, someone else's idea of what they need to be, a measurement. We may look on, if we take the measuring tape away, then we can be much more in our heart and our feelings, which is in touch with our feelings give us our GPSs how to move forward in an authentic, healthy way, opposed to the mind and what someone has perhaps placed on you through families or society. Coming into the body is our best gift to move forward.
Yeah, I think when we habitually, I think a lot of people habitually use that phrase, should. I should do this, I should do that. That's a real good opportunity. I think a real good recommendation to make for our listeners is to check in. Whose voice is that?
That's right.
Who suggested for the first time or set you up to believe that you should be doing that?
Right. And is this something that I'd like to do? You can ask yourself that. The second question, you'll get the answer.
And there may be reasons, but the word should implies sort of not only a requirement, but that the fact that you're not doing it now, there's something wrong with you. And, there's a time and place for everything. Time now for a phone call. We have a listener who's called in. Welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
I'm enjoying your show very much, Doc and Robin, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got Bruce on this side of the line. You really hit the target for me when you talked about the importance of complimenting, and I do that on a regular basis with the outside world. Numerous times a day when I call up about a product and I'm speaking to a technician and they give me great service, I express it to them, and then I say, something, you did such a great job, Josh, or whatever the guy's name is. Can I do something for you? Can you get a supervisor on the line? Can I write a letter? Can I leave someone voicemail? And it improves my day immensely. And I know it's a two-way street. We both get energy out of that process. The person I'm complimenting, and then I get energy for myself when I do that.
That's right.
That's such a great suggestion, an idea for people, as simple as it might sound, but as incidental as it is in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Customer service. Make that point. We're on the phone, often asking people for things, whether it's to set up an appointment to get our television fixed, or a reservation at a restaurant, or making arrangements for one of our kids. We're asking people for their help, and often, I know this by witnessing it, people are a little short. Not on the customer service end. I think they usually try to do a good job, but when you start off with a compliment, especially, I really appreciate your time, thank you, or you acknowledge how much work people do on your behalf, you're giving. Bruce, what you said I think is so interesting is that you feel good, because not only are you doing something for somebody else, but it elevates you, and of course that energy that you're putting out into the world is beautiful. More of that would be great for all of us.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, I never understood this in the past, but now I do understand it. You'd stop and you're in your car, you're in a strange neighborhood, and you get someone's attention. Hey, can you tell me how to get to a certain location? And the person starts helping you, and it's almost like they don't want to leave. Mm-hmm. They want to continue to help because they're helping me, but they're also feeding themselves. And I've done the same process. I live on a major street in New Rochelle, Eastchester Road. I remember the times when I'm out there cutting my lawn. I'm in a drop-dead mood, like I hate the world, although usually I'm the opposite. And all of a sudden someone stops, and I'm already thinking, don't bother me. And then somehow I get past my nonsense. I walk over to the car. We start talking. All of a sudden I'm feeling better. I said, hold on, let me get my map. I pull out the map. I start trying to direct them, and I said, I got a better idea. Let me get in my car. You'll follow me, and I'll take you right to that location. By the time I've done that, I have such an amazing tune-up on myself. It was just incredible. So
that's it. I hear you, Bruce, saying that you get so much out of it by giving of yourself and appreciating other people, and you actually just sharing this moment in time when you're in a place and you might be feeling a little bit low and down, and helping and giving of yourself uplifts you and other people. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it really works. It's a wonderful thing to do, and it really has helped me tremendously. And it's a natural thing. I cannot not do it. People will frequently say, "Well, that's my job," meaning like there's no need to say anything. I said, "Okay, that's your job, but if you're not going to give me the supervisor's name, I'm going to find out, because I have to." There's a part of me that has to go further with this. It just moves me so much. So,
again,
I want to thank you for your show. You do a great job, and I'm relatively new to hearing your show, and I enjoy it very much.
Thank you again, and I hope you have a great week, a holiday season ahead, and life going forward. Stay in touch with us.
Yes, thank you, Bruce.
You,
lots of love to you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye-bye.
So, I think that's a beautiful thing. Imagine if we went to, the home we go to for Thanksgiving, and the first thing we want to say when we arrive, after we say hello to everybody, is to talk to the people who were responsible for putting the table together and the meal, and share that level of gratitude.
That's right.
Boy, you must have worked really hard, and I really appreciated it, and all those things, and how uplifting that is. Often, what's interesting is a lot of people are taken aback sometimes by the compliments.
Right, that's a good point. It's interesting about receiving is truly being able to receive within ourselves. We need to be able to easier to give to someone else if we're feeling negative within ourselves. And I work a lot with individuals where we look and explore where that might have come from, and tools how to move into self-acceptance and this very thing we're talking about appreciating ourselves for our qualities, our positive qualities, as well as our struggles, goes a long way, and quite beautiful. So I say practice being the love is essential.
Yeah, and I think that's a great theme, which we could begin at any time, but this is a great week and a good holiday moment coming up where we could really put that into action, especially around the people who are probably closest to us. They're more likely to be our closest family and friends. The word family comes from the root word that means familiar. These are people we maybe see the most, we know the most, we are most intimate with, including those we may have the most buttons to push, and vice versa. So, this is an area where we can actually see into ourselves really well, this intimacy, into me, I see.
That's it.
Function is, if you're having a struggle, it often is something that's a reflection for your own mirror.
That's right. Back to the feelings. When you are struggling, the best measure you can take is to really go inside and allow yourself to be aware of what you are feeling, and feelings will come out a lot softer than judgment and opinions and reactivity, aggression. So gentle, just expressing oneself. The importance of that I help people be in touch with their emotions. And you were saying earlier about being in your body, feel your body, being present in the moment is also really essential.
One of the things that I think makes that challenging for people is in the phrase acceptance. Mm-hmm. Things are, in some ways, we know them to be not perfect. We think, based on our shoulds. They may actually be quite perfect in their imperfection, but often we say we would have preferred it this way or that way, and because it isn't, we feel we're struggling a little bit, and we're attached to changing it, as opposed to accepting that it is what it is and still being able to make the best of the day.
That's right.
And I think that's a personal task for each individual, is to, at least in certain moments, particularly the social moments, this is not the time to be particularly harsh on yourself or other people. You're in the ocean. You've got a surfboard. The wave is coming. you don't really have a choice as to what size wave it is. It's coming. You know it's coming. And if you're a surfer, basically you just use your tools to stay balanced. You get on the board, and then you do your best to feel it out and ride that wave.
Right.
And with Thanksgiving and any weighted meal, any weighted social situation, you sort of know there's going to be a chance. There's going to be an undercurrent or something unexpected. So think balance. Think, and then part of that is don't spend your time and energy wishing you had a bigger surfboard. This is what you've got right now.
Oh, that's right.
And so accept what you have, and I think most people will be pleasantly surprised that they have a lot of tools.
Right. Find the beauty in yourself and other people. I think Bruce's share was awesome. Really, it takes you out of the self-negative talk, is to give and appreciate someone else. And
yeah, like, so when you're stuck for words, why don't you just say something nice?
That's right.
And
compliment
and admire or acknowledge some of the beauty that you see. In that, you create beauty. What Bruce was sharing was in his efforts that he has to first overcome himself, but once he does, he feels the elation.
That's right.
And he knows he's contributed to somebody, but he actually is receiving at the same time he's giving.
Right. You will feel ease in your body, and if it's aggression, it's constricting energy. So it's a softening. It's the feminine, beautiful, motherly love is to be soft and appreciate and mirror someone and validate and empathize them. Really creates, like you said, in the body, a sense of relaxation, which is the opposite of anxiety.
You talked about the feminine. We'll take a break, but I do want to get back to that. I know, that you run 2 different women's groups and couples programs as well, but there are a lot of women that are coming to you now, it seems, who really want to be around other women. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's been said on a lot of levels about the feminine, the re-emergence of the feminine. This is not exactly the women's liberation movement, but perhaps it's related. But there's this new consciousness of feminine principles. And I think it's very important. It's part of the nourishment, the reconnection to earth and to each other. So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about people who are struggling with addiction when we return. So you're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. We're going to take another quick break, and when we return, take down this number, 914-636-0110. Call us with your question or your thought, and we'll continue this conversation when we get back.
You're listening to Slow Medicine Radio. You can find out more about the show and the work of Dr. Michael Finkelstein by visiting his website, slowmedicinedoctor.com. Slow Medicine Radio is sponsored by the Slow Medicine Foundation, dedicated to providing community-centered experiential and reflective learning for individuals, families, and groups, offering educational programs, events, and resources, as well as insightful health evaluations with customized medical guidance. Dr. Finkelstein works with his wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein, at their farm, Sunraven, in Bedford, New York. And they invite you to visit and take advantage of this unique resource, including men's and women's groups and couples programs. If you think about it, much of what we experience when we don't feel well is a result of the fast world and how it affects us. Therefore, if fast is the disease, then slow is the medicine. Visit Sunraven, the home of slow medicine in Bedford, New York. Go to slowmedicinedoctor.com or call 914-218-3113. And thank you for tuning in Mondays at 5 p.m. right here on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Slow Medicine Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Finkelstein, and I'm here with my wife, Robin Queen Finkelstein. And we're getting ourselves prepared for our Thanksgiving celebration. 21 people will be coming to our home, and we've already started to organize. We've harvested a lot of vegetables from our own garden, went to some farmers markets over the weekend. And really, it's an exciting time, not only because I like the celebration aspect of it, and I like family, and even though our family is no different than many others, we've got conflicts and potential. I always see it as an opportunity to take a step forward this year and to reflect on things of the past that have worked well, things that I think can be improved. And work on myself, mostly in that preparation, as you said at the very beginning, which is to breathe before the day begins, to feed yourself, to nourish yourself, to ground, to stay balanced ahead of time, I have found makes a big difference.
Move into the holiday full, and we also took care of ourselves in the relationship by having a date yesterday, which was really beautiful because Michael and I will be busy. We will be cooking and giving, and we really enjoyed an afternoon and a nice dinner, and we were we were able to sit and actually nourish ourselves together.
Yeah. So
take in.
When it comes to couples in general, I think one of the key recipes is to have time for yourselves. It doesn't have to be every day necessarily, but periodically, regularly enough, where you have time like that, whether it's an afternoon or afternoon and evening, a date night. But it requires dedication relationships. This is the subject for a whole nother show for sure.
That's right.
But Robin, it's one of the things that you do is you help couples learn to communicate with each other or relearn or accelerate or advance their learning in terms of communication and to stay in that loving place. A lot of work. But we also have somebody on the line to call, so welcome to Slow Medicine Radio.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I just want to say your program today is very appropriate for the upcoming holiday. And I am experiencing anxiety, anticipating everyone getting together. And I have a question. How would you advise, what would be the best way to diffuse a situation, or if you see a conversation coming up that's going to be very controversial, that could get heated up, in your opinion, how could you diffuse that to make it soften and not happen or end up in any kind of an argument at the table or during the day?
Right. Well, let me give this a shot. What is your name?
Katie.
Katie, thank you for calling in.
Okay.
I think earlier on we were talking about the skill of just mirroring someone, where you can actually mirror perhaps what they are sharing without agreeing or disagreeing, and perhaps even finding some place in your heart to validate what they are experiencing. That will definitely diffuse. And you might even say, is there more about that, feelings? Or I see you're having feelings, if you think
right. And you know what happens a lot of times, it's not even that I'm the one that's disagreeing with anyone. I'm sitting there observing it, and you see it coming between two other guests at the table.
Right. Right. So you can see it, and you can already reset for yourself inside. Take that deep breath that Michael was talking about. Come into your loving energy, so you're not coming from fight or flight.
Right.
And, you can go over and maybe put your hand on someone. Just loving gestures is going to diffuse that energy from my point of view.
It would be appropriate for me to interject and say something, or do you just, you can't just try to stop it, before it gets heated.
That'll backfire. However, just allow it and keep your heart open and not leave the judging out, and maybe just you can mirror and validate and say, that makes sense to me that you might be having feelings, and then you can pass the beautiful potatoes or sweet potatoes. Can I pour you another glass of
wine?
Of wine. There you go.
Yes, all right. Well, thank you. I will try that. Yeah. I will. Okay.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, take care. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you for calling me.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So, Robin, it doesn't necessarily surprise me that Katie called with that question in her experience, observing what goes on around the table in her home. That's sort of a feminine perspective. Caring so much about how other people are doing.
That's right.
That's not to say men don't have that. Men have masculine and feminine qualities. But it's a feminine, nourishing, nurturing concern.
That's right.
When you see women now, have you noticed that there's been a change a little bit in terms of what they want to talk about and why they're coming together?
Right. I think the key is the feminine looking for the nurturer. The nurturer can empathize and validate a person's experience without trying to fix something. So just holding each other can really help. And in the women's group, that's what we do. And I talk about the motherly love that can contain for another human being, which there is no solution at the end. It's just allowing the person to be fully present to whatever is happening inside without trying to change it, as Kate, I think it was, said about doing something. It's about not doing something. It's about being present and just holding your arms open and heart for another.
So the reason women are getting together, though, in these numbers,
right,
as I see it, what I'm hearing you say, is because they value that. And they're looking to meet with other people who support them in that. Because sometimes the world is a little rough on the peacemaker, on the caretaker. And that roughness sometimes defeats and deflates the energy of a person who's got that intention. But I think women are sort of coming to realize they're important healers in this world, certainly starting in their own families. And that they need to work with each other to feel the support, to regain the energy, to be able to then go out into their worlds, their own individual family life, and maybe world of work and of social life and even of politics, and to extend this heartfelt concern and care for all of humanity.
Right. Often you'll find women, adult women, the nurturers who took care of their families, and then their children grow up and they leave, and then they're left, oh, what about me? So back to loving ourselves and keeping that in light, and the new paradigm, finding that balance of soft, the feminine, and the masculine. So opening your heart and complimenting, as we were talking earlier, is a gift. Just listening and mirroring, validating a human being really creates softening inside and connection.
Which leads me then to this next subject that I've mentioned a couple of times already, which is addiction. People who live in this area are well aware now, I believe, of the epidemic of heroin addiction in particular.
Right.
And the deaths associated with that are maybe the most extreme visual relating to the levels of distress that we're experiencing, but the numbers are astonishing. It's happening all over suburban America as never before. And it leads to several questions about what's going on, why is this happening, and what goes on for the individual, perhaps, and we'll start with that word connection, which you just mentioned. When somebody feels disconnected, aren't they a little bit more prone then to, they're suffering, they're in need of connection. And if they can't get a human-to-human connection, they find other connections.
That's right. The anxiety is the core issue with addiction, and you just hit it on the nail there with the not feeling connected to other, and that is a primal need for human beings to feel connected. And I think in my mind and in my experience, it's these young people have a lot of expectations, a lot of anxiety around a lot of pressure, and they're losing that sense of feeling relaxed and at ease and feeling secure. It's creating the opposite effect.
Yeah, so I also, in my experience with this recently, is these are also highly sensitive people.
That's right.
Particularly sensitive people who have that combination then of the sensitivity, this ability to feel a lot, the empathy they may also have about other people suffering. And they also look at the world and saying, this whole thing is sort of falling apart. What kind of world am I walking into? And then they don't have the connection. They may have friends, they may have some family, but there's a deep longing for being seen, validated, heard, loved for who they are, not for some potential they have or gift or the expectation they're going to meet. And this is where I see the issue for those people. And then if they're unfortunate enough to get a little taste of a narcotic, let's say for a dental procedure or for back pain or just because it's social, and for that individual who may also have genetics and may have other things going for them, that high experience, that first high experience, feels finally like they've arrived. It's hard to get that out of your mind once you have it after you've been longing for so long.
Again, you just mentioned out of your mind. I think young people or addicts are looking to feel connected in their bodies, in their hearts, because the mind is taking over and takes them out of that direct experience. And I'm not so sure they're getting high. I'm almost seeing it as they're just coming into a state of a deep relaxation, which is the opposite of fight or flight and anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, when we then, as a society, are required now to look at this very carefully. This is not about then putting these people away. It's not even about rehab so much. It's really about understanding that the root cause of this illness, as I often talk about in any illness, the root cause of the illness is a disconnection.
That's right.
It's not a narcotic deficiency. It's not an opiate receptor problem. It's a disconnection to validation of the human experience, of that feeling of security, of warmth, of being held.
Yes.
And the antidote, therefore, is to love these people, is to acknowledge, validate that experience, tell them they're not out of their minds. This is actually probably one of the more intelligent thing people can do, is to say, this is a problem. There's definitely a problem here, and I'm suffering from it. And we can help them more, I think, by throwing love at them, just like we were talking about the Thanksgiving table, by putting love into that space, seeing them for who they are, the beautiful person inside. Calling them addicts is a terrible thing, as I see it. It labels them just like you can call people with all sorts of other diseases. It has a purpose. I understand in language we communicate and try to share concepts with words. But to the individual, they're still an individual. They have symptoms of something. But the condition, the treatment, what they deserve is honor and love.
Absolutely. I think back to mirroring, validating, and empathizing is as a lost art, and society today puts a lot of pressures, and pressures are about thinking of the future, which takes us out of the moment. Children already competing at a young age for their performance, opposed to seeing them for who they are individually. It really plays a big part of losing that ability to love and accept ourselves for who we are.
And in your work as a psychospiritual counselor, I know that you're not about so much rehashing the past, even though the past is valid. It's contributed to the present, but it's not about staying there in the past. It's by starting in the way past, which is you were born as a gift. You were born with life. You were born with beauty. That's your real past. Everything else that's happened in the interim that has helped you forget that is incidental. Maybe somehow the perpetration of other people around you that have failed to see or recognize that beauty that is our birthright as all individuals. Now, just to wrap up, there are the group of people who suffer, as we talked about, young people in the world today, which is really something I think we should talk about more at another time, because it's such an important subject. But the concept of substance abuse or overuse, we can see at the table on Thursday. We've got more food in most people's home than usual, more beverages, with alcohol than usual, more consumption. People are, enjoying themselves, that's great, but they're also feeding themselves often way more than their physical body's hunger. And that speaks to another type of hunger, that you would feed yourself like that. And it's not so dissimilar then in this whole conversation to the average person who tends to overconsume on days like this. What is it that you're doing? If it's not just because your grandmother made two different pies so you can taste both pies, I mean, I get that part. But if it's far in excess, and if people say, I feel so sick, and for people who are overdoing in the substance category, then we're talking about a similar thing. People often feel disconnected. Our hope in this program, and Robin, I want to thank you for joining me, is to help you remember that gratitude for your own life, your own core being. Bring that to the table. Feed yourself before you arrive. Think about all the things that have contributed. Your consciousness, your awareness, the fact that you listen to the show and you're going to think about some of the elements represents a quality in you. And maybe that'll help make that day a lot easier, more positive, more beautiful. And that's our wish for you from all of us at Sunraven, the home of slow medicine. And if you'd like to hear more about us, you could go to our website, slowmedicine.org, and you can actually come to Sunraven, not on Thanksgiving, unfortunately, our space is limited, but on December 18th, we have what we will call a Slow Medicine Cafe, which is an open house, and an opportunity for us to raise funds for people who don't have easy access to our services otherwise. So that's December 18th at Sunraven. So this week, I wish you well and peace, beauty, and love. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.